As always, we're going to talk a lot of football here on Locked On Bama, but boy, we got to give basketball some love today.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And thank you for making your first listen every single day. Also, very quickly, before I forget, and I don't want to forget, Jimmy, and this is important. This relates to Alabama. Nobody turn channel. I took my daughter on a tour of the University of Alabama. She goes to high school in Ohio, and she's a junior. I was blown away. If you guys are out there and you're like me and like you love Alabama sports, I do. But I mean, and I love the university too. I went there and I graduated from there. But I'm going to tell you the truth. When I went there, it was fine. But it wasn't like this unique college experience just from the academic side. Alabama's got it going on, bro. I'm telling you, things are different. Take your kids there. You're going to love it. I mean, we toured the communications facility, the business facilities, Bryce Hospital, which my company, Robin Stein, did a little bit of work for it on some of the stairwells, the historic stairwell. Gorgeous. Unbelievable. They're not even close to being done with what they're going to do there. I'm telling you, Alabama's got it going on, y'all. Go check it out. You're going to love it. I feel like I'm doing a live read for them, but I was so blown away.
If you hadn't been to Alabama, like a lot of people listen to the show, graduated from Alabama, went to Alabama like Luke and I did in the 80s and 90s. And if you haven't been back to Alabama, so if you're like our age, but you haven't been back to Alabama, you just watch the games on TV, which is fine. But if you haven't been here, you wouldn't recognize it.
Nope.
You would not recognize the university itself. It's huge, but it's nice. It's so nice. It's so hard to imagine there being other, and I've visited a lot of other campuses, but it's so hard to imagine other campuses being any nicer than the University of Alabama.
And Nick Saban deserves a lot of credit for this. For those who, nobody who doesn't care about football is listening to this, but there's some who are like, football doesn't. Nick Saban deserves a lot of credit for this.
Oh, this is the university that Saban built.
He elevated the brand. And I'm telling you, Alabama's got it going. I'm not just saying this because I would have gladly said years ago, hey, Alabama's fine. I enjoyed it. As long as you're usually if you're in the Greek life and if you love football and some basketball, you're going to be fine. You're going to love it. And you love partying. But now I'm telling you, you can go there and make some stuff happen academically. It's really, really blown me away. So I just had to say that. And the reason I had to say that too, my daughter is interested in communication, sports journalism. And I saw a guy there who was doing some camera work. His name is Mitch. He said he recognized me from Locked On Bama. And then there was also a student named Caleb who recognized me when I was about to go to the business center. And they both, and I said, I'm giving them both a shout out. I mean, I hope they don't think that's weird. But I appreciate when people say they watch the program. So let's get into basketball now, Jimmy. That's enough of
your daughter needs to guest on the show.
Look,
some real life experience.
That's not a bad idea. And my son is actually doing a lot of videography for the University of Arizona State Athletic Department. He actually he was like this close. And for those on the audio, I'm doing my hands real close together. To Bronny James when he came for the USC game, doing a lot of video. So doing some cool stuff. I hope there's some money in this thing somewhere. We hadn't found it, but I hope it. Anyway, Jimmy, basketball. The basketball game last night, I watched the replay this morning because I was not able to see it last night. Really impressed with the way this team played. Man, it's Nate Oates, dude, this is me clapping for you. We want you here so badly. I know he put his hand on a Missouri player. Shouldn't have done that. Jimmy and I readily admit that. I know he can be a little fiery. I know he can, gig opponents occasionally. I know all that. And some of that I'm not super fired up about. As far as a coach goes, I ain't trading him. I think he's awesome. He just scored 109 points on LSU. I mean, we're setting records in scoring. We are when we're on fire, we are tough to beat. And guys like Grant Nelson are getting better. They're getting better. He is learning, hey, maybe I don't need to shoot 4 or 5 3-pointers a game. He shot one, he missed it. He shot one and missed it, but he was 3 or 4 from the field, played some great defense, had some nice rebounds. Mark Sears is still just a man-child out there who, by the way, does have another year of eligibility, and I hope we can round up enough NIL to bring him back because I need to start.
Grant, by the way.
I'm sorry?
Grant Nelson has one too. Grant Nelson has one too. I never would have believed he'd be here for more than 1 year, and I'm still not sure that he will be here for more than 1 year, but I do think – but it is surprising to hear that, but people should know Mark Sears and Grant Nelson could return. I
mean – and I'm not trying to get too far ahead in the next year, but I mean, I'm just so excited about our future. And then you talk about Aiden Sherrill coming in, Darian Reed coming in, the other kid from California that was
Cunningham.
Cunningham, who was the #1 player. This program deserves a lot of love. And I know football butters our bread, but man, I'm so thrilled about this basketball program. And look, I know we had a little mini losing streak in there. We said it on this podcast that, hey, let's look on the bright side. Those kind of things might toughen us up, and I swear to God they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting team to me, Luke. For one thing, this is where Nate Oates deserves, National Coach of the Year talk. Is Alabama probably had its best team of all time last year. I mean, in terms of last year was the first time I remember saying this on the show, Luke. Last year was the first time I've ever watched Alabama basketball and thought to myself, Alabama has the best basketball team in the country. We're the best team. Now, we didn't advance past the Sweet 16. That's on the team for not getting it done against San Diego State. But there was a stretch last year where it was reasonable to say Alabama might be the best team. They did enter the NCAA tournament as the #1 overall seed. So there you go. Now, somehow, despite having what amounts to a completely new roster, Nate Oates has improved the offense. This is a better offense than they had a year ago when we had our all-time best team. It's really nuts when you think about it that, wow, how in the world is this team improved offensively over the best team we've ever had? But the Achilles heel, as Nate will be the first one to tell you, we're not real good on defense. We're not good on defense at all. Gave up 88 last night. Seemed like we scored every trip down the court. Seems like they scored every trip down the court. And it's LSU. It's not Duke. Defensively, this is just not a real good team. And ultimately, it will be our undoing in terms of a failure to win the league, in terms of a failure to advance far into the tournament. Ultimately, the defense is going to bite us in the behind. But, man, they're fun to watch because they score.
And I think you're right about that. I think that and it has happened. We've seen it happen through the years in the Nate Oates era. But here's something else. When we're shooting threes or getting layups all the time, and the other team is still scoring, but they're getting mostly twos, you look up and it's 109 to 88 or whatever it is. Right. That's the thing is, yes, the old live by the three, die by the three, whatever you want to say. But if we can consistently shoot well, we can beat anybody. Now, lack of defense is a thing. But I will say this, the defense is getting better. I think the defense is getting better. I think Grant Nelson's playing better defense, and I think that's who we really need to play better defense. And so I'm super excited. We got a tough game against Georgia. Yeah. People aren't going to think it's a tough game. It's a tough game. Tough.
That's real tough.
I watched Georgia play Florida yesterday, and I tell you what, we're going to talk about a little bit about the SEC on the whole basketball-wise right after this. Right now, I want to tell you about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and much, much more. Whether you're into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time with your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber. You ain't burning cash, bro. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So Alabama, I mean, technically in first place by not even technically, like actually first place by itself.
Really first place.
In the SEC, nothing to sneeze at. It could easily change. The SEC is sort of a meat grinder this year, but I mean, I'm seeing teams that I thought would start faltering, like a Mississippi State. By the way, we've already played them there and beat them there. That win is looking sweeter and sweeter. They beat Tennessee at home. They beat Auburn at home. That Mississippi State win is looking sweeter and sweeter. Then we've already played South Kakalaki. We don't have to play them again, I don't believe. And they're pretty tough. They destroyed Kentucky the other day. I don't know what in the world is wrong with Arkansas. I mean, they got problems. They're not very good. They're not going to make the tournament. You got to wonder if, I mean, they've already had one player sort of walk out on the team. You got to wonder if that's going to be a trend. Vanderbilt actually gave Tennessee a bit of a run yesterday. And then Georgia, Florida. Florida was at a 21-point lead at half. Georgia ended up taking it to OT and probably should have won. But some other things that helped Alabama. Now, Oregon lost to Arizona, but that sort of washes. Clemson beat Duke. I'm just going to tell nobody else gets the call Duke got at the end of that game.
And I watched the end of that game and I called it. You know, and I did. I mean, I was the only one in my living room when I said this out loud, but I said it out loud just to be emphatic about it, is that when Clemson had a lead with like 2 minutes left, I said out loud, the officials are not going to let Duke lose this game.
No chance.
And that's literally what happened. And that it's just playing on the road. And how about this stat? Luke, I'm about to blow you away if you don't know this stat. But it gets back to what you said about how hard the Georgia game is going to be Wednesday for Alabama to win. I'm going to blow you away if you don't know this. Check this out, people. The Associated Press top 10 this year, if you're a top 10 ranked team at a time you play a basketball game, the AP top 10 has a losing record on the road in games this year.
Wow.
True. The AP top 10 has lost more games than they have won on the road.
Wow. And that includes like Kansas losing at a bad West Virginia, you know?
Correct. Correct. If you're in the top 10, now Alabama's beaten one top 10 team, and it was a road loss for Auburn in that game. Alabama's also lost to some teams on the road when they've been in the top. But the point is, I think it's 21 wins, 27 losses. 21 wins, 27 losses off the top of my head in terms of top 10 teams and pure road games.
There are going to be some people, and I know there are people listening to this, and maybe you're one of them, Jimmy, that really love that love, it's a guessing game. Who knows what can happen? I like having somebody to chase. Who's the number one team? I mean, is it UConn? I guess UConn?
The number one team to me is, the best. If we're predicting right now, I'm going to predict UConn wins the national championship. That's my prediction. I think UConn will win it. But I wouldn't bet $1. And I think the team that most people think will win it is Purdue. And I get that. And Purdue is really good. We had an up-close look. I don't think they'll win. I really don't. I mean, I'd take the field against anyone. I mean, would you take UConn or the field? The field. You take Purdue or the field? The field. Definitely. I would take the field over UConn and Purdue.
Shoot. Jimmy, at this point, I mean, and let's get back to the SEC race. I mean, the SEC race is going to be nuts. I mean, Auburn did lose 2 games in a row, but I mean, those might be their 2 toughest games. I mean, outside of, I think they do go to Tennessee, so maybe that'll be their toughest game. Auburn's schedule is a joke, and in the SEC even is a joke. And they that's just fortunate. That is nothing they did. I'm not blaming Auburn for that. Nothing. It's just the luck of the draw. And they get Kentucky at home. Kentucky's not great on the road, and so I still, even though Auburn looked, very, very vulnerable these last 2 games, I would still say Auburn has got to be the favorite. I mean, Tennessee still got to come to Alabama. Tennessee still got some tough games left. Auburn they're two of their toughest 3 games are behind them in the conference.
Here's my theory as to why there's some parity. It is the transfer portal in my mind. In terms of my blanket answer, why is there so much parity? The portal.
Yeah.
Look, I think in the old days, Kentucky, Duke, Indiana, Arizona, Kansas, they would sign all these McDonald All-Americans and all the 5-stars, and they would all sign there, and then 5 of them would play, and the other 8 would be on the bench and sulk, but there was nothing they could do about it. They would just sit on the bench and wait their turn. No one waits their turn anymore. I think those same blue bloods, and Alabama is now one of them because we recruit alongside those programs, I think the same schools plus the newbies like Alabama, they're signing all the talent out of high school, and they show up and they're either starting or the next year they're leaving, because the first decision they make out of high school is, I'm going to sign where I want to go play basketball. After their freshman year, then they decide, you know where I'm going next? Where I know I can play. And then it evens everything out, right? Because what used to be bench players at Kentucky and Duke are now starters at places like San Diego State.
And here's a cool thing. I just thought about that. They actually get the benefit of both worlds. Like, they go to Kentucky or Duke or North Carolina or whatever, and they are automatically elevated in terms of status.
And cash
and then when they transfer, everybody's like, man, we got this Kentucky transfer coming in wherever they go. So they get the benefit of more playing time and having the Kentucky or Duke or North Carolina tag associated with them.
Yeah, and it's and all the group of 5 schools, all the basketball schools, they all pay NIL money. It's not like but they can go, well, I made a bunch of money my freshman year sitting on the bench. I'm going to take less money next year, but I'm going to play, and that's a better situation for me. I'd rather make $50,000 and play than $100,000 and sit.
Yeah. No, some people would. I might not. I can see, sort of like Daniel Tosh used to say about Brett Favre. As long as people keep paying him to be a backup quarterback, I will be a backup quarterback. Yeah, you're gonna pay me $3 million to not play? Yeah, I'm going to do that. So,
well, I think also that it's a lot. A lot of these kids think that they're going to play in the NBA. It's the craziest thing. There's so few kids that can play in the NBA. It's not like the NFL. The NFL dream is alive for a lot of people. The NBA dream is alive for very few because of international players, frankly. International players and smaller rosters. It's just really hard to make in the NBA, but all these kids think they are. So they're like, well, I know I'm third string at Kentucky and I can't get on the court, but I'm going to transfer to Butler where I can play so the NBA scouts can see me play. And the whole time I want to tell those people, hey, look, if you're at Kentucky and you're not playing, guess what? You're probably not an NBA player.
Yeah, no, that's really a good point. All right, Jimmy, let's talk a little bit about FanDuel.
Let's.
Happy Super Bowl nearly weekend to all who celebrate. That's all of you. And that's from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is coming up, and it's all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. I love Super Bowl bets. I'll bet on the coin toss. You dang right I will. I'll bet on the length of the national anthem. You dang right I will. I'll do all that stuff. The in-game betting is so much fun to me when it comes to the Super Bowl, especially. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end your season with a W or 2 or 3 or 100. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl, number 58, by the way, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and much, 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 much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets for your first $5 bet. That's crazy. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon, all one word, FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so let's get into a little bit of football stuff here, Jimmy. Jabbar Muhammad, he committed to Oregon. Okay, I missed out on a dude, but
the moment he hit the portal, that's where, the moment he hit the portal, they were a big favorite. People have to understand that because they're like, why didn't he follow the coaches like the other Washington? The moment he hit the portal, the recruiting industry said he would go to Oregon, and that's what happened.
And that's what happened. And that's usually the recruiting industry is generally on the money.
They have sources.
If you do need a bright spot in this, we got Ryan Williams, and I can't be more excited.
I need to talk for 3 minutes about Ryan Williams. Just, I went to the basketball game, of course, last night, and it just blows me away because how about – so I look up and see I have seats near the floor. Thanks, Josh, by the way, for listening. Thanks for that. It's 7th row seats, courtside, and near the student section. And I look over, and there I see Jalen Mbakwe, Ryan Williams, and I think Rico Scott. Wasn't sure about the third guy. Pretty sure it's Rico Scott. Those 3 are with the students. I've never seen anything like it. Ryan Williams was wearing a hard hat. Ryan Williams is wearing a hard hat with the Crimson Chaos. He's down there gumping out with all the students and Crimson Chaos. And right behind the president of Crimson Chaos, got him Jacob Pickle this year. Ryan's in the row right behind him. And there's a stream of students and adults waiting to get their picture taken with Ryan and Mbakwe. And they're having a big time. I saw other football players there. There were other football players there. But my point is, I've been going to basketball games for years. The football teams generally hang by themselves. Football players, they're like a little fraternity. They hang with themselves, sit way up at the top, around, don't necessarily mingle a lot. They're just kind of like their own, kind of stay away. There's Ryan in the middle of all the students going crazy, cheering at the game like his brother was playing in the basketball game for Alabama. I mean, I was just knocked out by how into Alabama the kid is. And again, this is an unofficial visit. It wasn't even an official visit again. I mean, he's already done that. It just blows me away. And I asked my wife this last night, and as we watched the stream of people get their picture taken with Ryan, other than Jalen Milroe, I asked her this question, so I'll ask it now to Luke. Other than Jalen Milroe, is Ryan Williams the second most popular player at Alabama? I think the answer is unquestionably yes. He's the second most popular player, and he's in the 11th grade at Saraland High School.
Yes, I think you're right. And frankly, I don't know that he's not one. He's number 2 with a bullet. I mean, if this man catches a touchdown pass of any description or returns a punt for a touchdown or something in that first game, he's going to be elevated number 1 on the popularity list.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it might be. It just struck me looking at that line of people waiting to take pictures with him. Because I mean, I saw Peyton Woodyard at the game last night too. Didn't have anybody asking for his picture. I'm like, hey, that's Peyton Woodyard, and no one was at. Maybe I should have. Hey, Peyton, you should pick real quick.
By the way, the most astonishing thing you said in there, the president of Crimson Chaos his name is Mr. Pickle.
It's Mr. Jacob Pickle, yeah.
And Jacob, hey, I appreciate all Crimson Chaos does. Mr. Pickle's kind of funny.
It is. I'm sure he hears. He's in school, so I'm sure he hears that. But boy, the student section is something else, man. It just makes me feel like, man, when me and you were at Alabama, man, we were terrible student leaders. Oh, I went to all the basketball games. Now, I did go. I probably missed just a small handful, if ever. I mean, I went to all of them. I'm sure Luke did too. So I was there in the student section. I remember went to law school. Everybody went to law school with me. Everybody went to college somewhere else. And I remember sitting next to this dude from North Carolina, and he's like, well, I miss sleeping in the tent for basketball tickets. And I'm like, y'all really did that? And he talked about how they would have to sleep in a tent and wait for like 36 hours to get their basketball tickets to go to a game. And he's like, what'd you have to do to Alabama? And I'm like, show our student ID and walk in the door. Show my ID, walk in the door 2 minutes before tip, and sit in the 10th row. He was like, it blew him away. But at the same time, then we talked about football, and they could do the same thing for football there. Yeah. I mean, football for them was nothing. At Alabama, they have student tickets are almost hard to come by, but with 40,000 students, and they're all wanting to go to the game.
Jamie Ffrench, who was a one-time Alabama commit, has been reoffered by the new staff. I think he visits next weekend, does he not, Jimmy?
Ffrench, he is. I think it's up in the air, not known. He's going to come at some point. Okay. He is favoring other schools right now. I mean, he used this downtime when he decommitted to get all nice and cozy with Miami, Florida State, Ohio State. I think they lead for Jamie Ffrench, but the door is reopening. The door is opening. We did reoffer Jamie Ffrench, the new staff. I believe they're going to his high school this week. So he's going to be, as he becomes a priority player for the new staff, and Ryan Williams, he's tight with Ryan. I think Alabama can get back in on Jamie Ffrench, but I don't think it will be as, quote, easy as it was the first time around, because now he's got a good relationship with these other powerful programs. And Ohio State's tough to beat. It's tough to beat them for wide receivers.
Good Lord. I really want – it's got to be Brian Hartline.
Yeah, it is.
Why don't we hire him?
He works for somebody else.
I know, but I don't care what. I mean, just hire him as a janitor. I don't care, and pay him a gazillion.
It'd be like somebody at Locked On right now going, "Why don't they hire Josh Pate instead of these guys? Well, he's working somewhere else."
Josh Pate wouldn't work for what we work for. That's why. There's a reason.
Well, I was just coming up with what hire Brian Hartline. I mean, pretty sure
Josh Pate.
Pretty sure he's got a job.
Josh Pate spends more on paper towels in a month. I mean, than we make in the year. And I don't even know why. He just buys extra paper towels.
We've had Josh on the show.
Yeah. Do you think we could still get him?
I could get him. I mean, I hate to name drop. I think we could get him. I know him, and you know him. I know him.
I do. Let me say
he'll
this.
He'll take my call. I don't know that he'll be on the show anymore.
Let me ask this, guys, out there listening. Would y'all like us to have Josh Pate on the show? I would like to have him on the show, but I want the listeners to chime in. Yeah. I think Josh Pate's like the best thing going right now.
Oh, I think
outside of us.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'd go so far as to say I won't be surprised if one day Josh Pate isn't on ESPN Game Day. I think he's got that level of talent to where he
doesn't have enough hair, Jimmy.
Yeah, probably not. Well,
you gotta have Reese Davis-esque hair.
He can borrow some of mine. I hate it.
But yes, by that qualification, you should be hosting Game Day.
I should. Or a Bon Jovi tribute band.
All right. We said we were going to do some roster ranking stuff. We just don't have time to do it. So that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.